ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hey, that's not fair. I'm sorry, that's not fair.
Oscar will have the opportunity to review together afterwards. Focus on this race, mate. We can still have a good result here.
Yeah, but if he has to avoid another car by crashing into his teammate, then that's a pretty job of avoiding.
That is Oscar Piastri making it clear in his own low-key, understated way that he's a bit cranky after teammate Lando Norris clattered into him in the last Grand Prix in Singapore. This weekend is in Austin, and you know what they say about Texas. Everything's bigger, including the stakes. 6 Grand Prix are left, and a world title is on the line. So is this the weekend a tenuous McLaren alliance breaks? That in a moment with Jennie Gow. We have World Cup cricket. We have A-League's forecasting. All that coming up. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily. Jennie Gow covers Formula One for the BBC. You'd have seen her analysis on Netflix's Drive to Survive. She's excellent. Jennie, welcome. After a week and a bit of hiatus, Formula One's back in Austin. The last race in Singapore laid the tensions bare in the McLaren camp. Can you just remind us why that race felt so significant?
Lap 1, 10 pretty much won. Lando Norris has a small contact with Max Verstappen, which sends him into the path of Oscar Piastri.
Verstappen ahead then of Piastri. Norris then battling away with his teammate and championship rival. He's got the inside line as he forces Piastri wide. And Lando Norris has managed to get through. And he's made up 2 places from the start.
Ordinarily, that might be okay. But with this massive tension behind the 2 drivers, 25 points going into the race separating the 2 men, it was all to play for, and both Piastri and Norris could have sustained heavy damage. As it was actually Norris who received a little bit of his wing came off. But on track, I think Oscar Piastri was asking the question of, hang on a minute, that shouldn't happen. Why is this happening?
So are we cool with Lando just barging out of the way, or what's the go there?
And it allowed Norris to get ahead of Piastri. And he, I think, was implying that maybe the positions should have been swapped because it wasn't fair racing. And that's what this newfound McLaren success is based on.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't very team-like, but sure.
So when it came to the end of the race and it was Norris who finished ahead of Piastri, obviously it didn't go down too well with the team or with Piastri. Norris had looked at it barely when he came to speak to us in the pen and didn't think he had done anything wrong.
But it's racing, and I put it on the inside. I had a small correction, but nothing more than that. Was good racing, and like I said, I wish I could have given it a little bit more. I wish there was a few more overtaking opportunities today, but I felt like I did everything I could today, and I'm happy with that.
And the gap is now close to 22 points, which is within 1 race gap. Points scored 25 for a race win. So it is significant, but more significant, I suppose, how they continue to race from here on in.
I mean, the images of the team celebrating the Constructors' title without Oscar while he was still doing press, that was jarring. Zach Brown, the team principal, trying to congratulate Piastri and him essentially turning him off, that was jarring. Was this the clearest indication yet that we've had that maybe Lando Norris is being favoured by Team McLaren, or is that just an Australian conspiracy theory?
I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth, I honestly believe. So after a race, the top 3 talk to, obviously, the interviewer under the podium. They then go and do the podium, and then they come to speak to us as media. Now, for anyone that doesn't finish on the podium, there's a different setup, and they have to come immediately to speak to the media. And I think that's what happened. Piastri had to come and speak to us, and Norris was doing his thing on the podium, and it all kicked off. I don't believe there was any intention to leave Piastri out of those celebrations. It just was what unfolded. And as the evening continued, they did celebrations with the whole team in front of the garage. Piastri was there. He was on social media. He was doing stuff with Andrea Stella, the team principal.
A massive thank you to everyone, and especially all the fans. There was plenty of you here in Singapore, which was great to see. We had by far the most fans out of any team, so I'm glad that a lot of you got to experience it with us, and excited for the rest of the season as well. So thanks very much for your support.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks to our fans. I'm very proud of you, Oscar. Lando.
And I didn't get the feeling that there was any irk between the team as a whole. And obviously they'll have gone away, they'll have debriefed, they'll have celebrated the success of winning the Constructors' Championship for a second time. But how they handle going into this weekend, I think, is all important, and all eyes on McLaren now.
Yeah, I'm so intrigued to see what we get from them publicly. Has there been any indication as to whether they've had to sort of had running repairs conversations in the last 10 or so days to sort of repair what appeared to be a little bit fractious?
Well, look, the team have celebrated and they had everyone into the factory. All of the staff were there. Both Lando and Oscar were there. Team bosses, team principals, all of the people you would expect. Lots of the media went to Woking to celebrate and capture those images of McLaren winning their second title in a row. To all intents and purposes, it looked like they were in a good place. They were fine, they were joking, they were laughing with each other, as they have done all season. But now the Constructors' Championship is done. I think the question mark is, will they be free to race as they have been before? And will they race in that manner? Or actually, will the gloves come off and the elbows come out?
I think that the talks from Singapore were very productive with everyone involved. I think, the conclusion was what happened in Singapore is not how we want to go racing as a team. And ultimately Lando's taken responsibility for that. So, that's in the past now, and the rules won't change because of that. I think, ultimately we've got that framework in place for a reason, and that there's no reason for that to change now. So, it's been dealt with, and now looking forward to the future.
When push comes to shove and a championship title is at stake, I mean, who's going to go, no, after you, please, take the title? I mean, they are all-out fighters.
I've marvelled at Piastri's ability to remain pretty low-key with all of the media attention, at least, swirling. I feel like we're starting to see little bits of fraying as we go. Do you sense that he is on the way to, losing his temper, as it were?
I think the last couple of races haven't gone well for Piastri, that's for sure. And he was used to winning. He was used to being in pole position. And you definitely felt momentum was on his side. But for the last three races, McLaren haven't had it all their way, with Mercedes coming in and battling, Red Bull coming in and battling. And they weren't expected to be able to challenge for wins. So that's come out of the blue, and I think it's thrown the whole team in a way. Even though they've won the Constructors, they weren't expecting to have to really fight to win races. And that affects how many points the team score and the gap between the drivers as well. So I think the way that things happened last time out and the time before that with the retirement from Piastri, all of these little things count, and they start to weigh a bit more heavily on a driver's psyche. And he comes into this weekend, and I think McLaren will be the favourites to win this weekend. But Piastri, for his self, has to come out on top.
If you're a betting woman, 6 weeks' time or 6 races' time, who would you expect to be holding up the world title from a driver's perspective?
I mean, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? I'd love to know what your listeners think. For me, I do think Piastri is in pole position to win. He's still got a 22-point gap lead over Norris. And that's a big margin to overturn. And I know there's sprint weekends. This weekend is one of them. So there are extra points up for grabs. And even Max Verstappen is still in the equation. But for me, I'm going to stick with Piastri. He's 22 points in the lead. It's going to be hard to overturn that.
Can't wait to see how it all plays out in Austin this weekend. Jennie, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
You are more than welcome. And I hope for you guys' sake that you do have an Australian winner. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing to have an Australian champion? Yes.
We're due. Okay, I've got to talk about Alyssa Healy for a moment, because you can't help but feel this woman is in the middle of constructing a career masterpiece. We know the wicketkeeper batter is one of our all-time greats, but since taking over the captaincy from Meg Lanning, it hasn't always been great. There's been injury and form struggles, and she's always got it done. but maybe not at the level that she would expect of herself and we would expect of her. In 3 warm-up games against India, Healy didn't get past 30. The 2 tournament openers against New Zealand and then Pakistan, those scores were lean, didn't get past 20. That was the context coming into a huge clash with India this week, which had all the hallmarks of a possible watershed moment. Could the big hosts knock over a superpower in Australia? And when the home team posted a world record chase total, it was pretty nuts that Healy smashed 140 odd from about 100 balls.
Oh, and it's easy as you like. Alyssa Healy, first for her as captain. What a disciplined effort from her today.
That ton was 3 years in the making from an ODI perspective. She waited 4 days for the next one. 113 from 77 balls as she and Phoebe Litchfield chased down 202 without losing a wicket to beat Bangladesh. This is a woman who feels like she's putting together a seriously special tournament. The A-League men's competition returns this weekend. Sydney Morning Herald football writer Vince Rugari joins us to talk about it. Vince, the start of a season is generally a good time to talk about the health of a league as we gear up for the latest edition. Is it in good shape?
Mixed prognosis, I would say. You know, the story, I think, of the last few years has been that some very interesting young players are emerging and being sold for good money and progressing their careers overseas, and that's having a really good flow and impact for the Socceroos, which I think is going to bode well for the national team for the next 10 years. But for the league itself, I wrote a story for the Herald about the top 50 players for goals and assists in the league last season. 23 of them have left. Now, a lot of them are young players who should be leaving because that is the model of world football. But some of them are also, established professionals, whether they're Aussie or imports, and the kind of players that 10 years ago the league would keep and clubs would build themselves around. And that sort of player at the moment, due to the lack of money in the league, is departing, and that is going to have some, I think no one's going to notice the difference too much in terms of the on-field quality, but I think the more of those sort of players you lose, the more that will go down. And that's also not good for the young players as well, because they need sort of experienced pros around them to learn off. So there's challenges there. And then, of course, the reality that this season there's 12 teams, not 13, with Western United going kaput, which is, not great. They could still come back in the near future. I hope they do. But, that's never a good look and probably reflective of a league that is struggling a little bit at the moment.
Of those players that are remaining, who is it that you are thinking will light up the competition in this edition?
Great question. I've got absolutely no idea, and that's part of the beauty of the A-League. Those 23 of 50 players that I mentioned leaving, those goals and assists and those roles will be filled by players for sure. We have some ideas, I guess, of who the dominant players might be, but, there's definitely going to be some young players or some wild cards who no one's thinking about right now who come sort of early to mid next year might even be in the conversation for the World Cup for the Socceroos. But the player who I'm personally tipping for the Johnny Warren medal, partly out of hope, but I do think it's a good chance that it will happen, is Nishan Velupillay from Melbourne Victory. For me, I think any A-League players who want to make it to the World Cup need to have a dominant season to do it because of the amount of depth that's been built in Europe. Velupillay's got it in him if he can stay fit. He needs to grab this competition by the scruff of the neck and absolutely dominate it, score goals, set up goals for Melbourne Victory. That's what I want to see, and I hope it happens.
Vince, who's going to win the competition?
Look, it's hard to go past the top 2 from last season. Auckland FC didn't lose too much in the off-season in terms of players, aside from Alex Paulson, their goalkeeper, who I think is going to go to some pretty high levels in his career. It will be interesting to know how much of their success was built on the back of having a really good shot stopper there. But then the other one is Melbourne City, just a fantastic footballing operation with probably the largest amount of very good young Australian players coming through as well, who got a taste of it last season and will be better for it. I think the challenge for them will be negotiating through the Asian Champions League elite this season and all the travel that's required with that, which won't be easy. But they're the kind of team that I can see probably finishing anywhere between like 2nd and 6th. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a complete repeat of last season in that Auckland finishes top, but City wins the grand final.
Can't wait to catch it all. Vince, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate.
No time for soundbites this week, just too much to talk about. We're going to be back Monday. I'm Patrick Stack, this is ABC Sport Daily. Thanks to Poppy Penny for producing, and thanks to Fox Sports, Formula One and McLaren on X for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.